Welcome to Nonsense, Season 3, Episode 31, our big story and our second show of the week. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Stu Little.
This time we're looking at Finding Point Nemo, where heroic spacecraft go to die. The world's most inaccessible address, up next.
Oh, great. So we're going to get sued by Disney now. Is that right? By using the Nemo name?
There's a good chance of that. Every land mass has a point that is the furthest from any ocean.
Okay.
The one that is further than all the others we think is the Eurasian pole of inaccessibility.
Okay.
The water version of that is Point Nemo. So it's the water, the furthest away from any landmass.
I think the United States Postal Service refers to the U.S. as their zone of inaccessibility. So they have a very similar term, which apparently they can't deliver anything to in a reasonable amount of time.
Okay, unraveling the secrets of Point Nemo. Let's do it.
I'm in. Now, look, at Nonsense, we like to say that in any given episode, you'll laugh at least once and learn at least one new thing.
When do we say this?
I don't, somebody earlier, I think the previous hosts said that.
I've never heard this.
It's what I say, really, I think.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing. I'm not sure that I can be held responsible for either of those on most days, but thankfully, that's why we have you, Jeff.
Okay.
You do the thing.
You be the clown man.
Look, our intent for this episode is no different. We actually, the entire point of last episode's topic, where we talked about preservation, was to provide some context on how humans have approached preservation in general in the past. With that, Jeff, you had mentioned Point Nemo earlier. What else can you tell me about Point Nemo?
It sounds like it's a landmass, doesn't it? Point Nemo. Doesn't that sound
no,
like
it sounds like
no,
it sounds like it's a point on a map.
It turns out it is.
I wouldn't say a landmass.
When I think of Point Doom or something like that, I'm thinking of a place that's land. This is not that. This is not a landmass.
Your entire, I like for in your brain when you index map and point, you get Point Doom and that's it. That's all there could be. You're like, that's the only place. Okay, I appreciate that.
I draw a very small circle for my references.
But also, how many reference points do you have that are not land-based? I think we pretty much only think in land-based.
That's probably true.
Like even in the atolls where we dropped, we tested the atomic bombs, those were small land masses out in the middle of the ocean. Yeah. Like you don't do a lot just in the water.
But I would not think of it as water. I would think of point as a landmass. It is not. It's water.
Yes.
It is the most remote place on Earth.
That sounds far.
You are closer to it when you fly over in the International Space Station than you are if you are on one of the land masses adjacent to it.
Yeah, my understanding is that typically the humans that are the closest are the folks in the ISS when they fly over.
The 250 miles above.
Something like that, yeah.
It is equidistant to the Pitcairn Islands, Easter Island, and Antarctica. Those are the three land masses that surround it.
And even the land masses to the north are pretty small.
Yeah, they're little islands.
Little tiny islands. So you're really out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, this is sort of equidistant between New Zealand and Chile, right? For just where we are on the globe.
Yeah.
Is that about right? Roughly? So South Pacific, but it's not a thing, right? It's just it's a barren place.
It was identified not by discovery, but by calculation. The exact coordinates were found using a geospatial computer program in 1992.
Wow. That sounds like a lot of words to say Google Maps.
Did Google Maps exist in 1992?
No, of course not. It was an early version. A young Sergey Brin had pre-Google Maps.
The seas are so rough.
How rough are they?
The weather is so bad.
Yeah.
It has literally only been intentionally visited recently in March of 2024.
Oh, wow, that's nuts. I thought some of the yacht races went through there. When they would go around the world, they would cut across that sort of area.
Yeah, I think there's a Volvo race that goes through there.
Interesting.
They were doing some sampling, so maybe.
Sure.
It is a biological desert.
Yeah. You get a lot of the nutrients in the water come from the land masses. So there's no landmass nearby.
Yeah.
The water is pretty void of everything. And it's deep too, right? It's a couple miles deep.
It's 13,000 feet deep.
Wow. And there's no fishing out there. There's no cruise ships. It's just barren.
In fact, it's named after the fictional character Captain Nemo.
Yeah.
The name from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Jules?
Yeah, Jules Verne. The name means no one or nobody. So it means like isolated. It means there's nobody here. It is far, far away. Captain Nemo. It is isolated.
I mean, it does what it says in the tin.
Do you know about the bloop?
Nope.
Scientists heard this bloop.
The bloop.
This sound.
Was this when the Titan imploded? Is this going to be another sad show?
No. The sound that scientists heard underwater, and they thought, well, that's louder than a sound any whale makes.
Okay.
For a long time, it was thought there must be some strange sea creatures or something around Point Nemo.
This is a sound they heard around Point Nemo.
What they were actually hearing, it turns out, was calving of icebergs breaking.
Oh, interesting.
From Antarctica.
And it sounded like a bloop?
What they heard was a bloop, yeah.
Huh. But it was basically just an iceberg doing a giant cannonball into the water.
Which is probably not a great thing, but It does happen every year.
Sure.
Because Antarctica swells and shrinks by like 2/3 in size.
That's me at Thanksgiving. Same. No different.
And the final thing that I know about
Yes.
Point Nemo is that it's a space graveyard.
Yes, this is the interesting part. So you are across this.
I know that's what you want to get to.
Did I telegraph that earlier? The point is that, at least the way I see this, is there's literally nothing there. There's barely sea life. It's very deep. There are no humans. There's no runoff from land. And all we do as humans with this space is crash into it. We just dump stuff into it.
Spacecraft.
For good reason, namely spacecraft.
Satellites.
So what's interesting to me about that is that you have, and by the way, we dump them there for good reason, because there are no people, right? So if you've got something coming in out of orbit, you kind of know where it's going to go, but you don't know how it's going to break up. You don't know where pieces are going to land. So you want to be as far away from people as possible. Point Nemo happens to be it.
This is it, yeah.
So there's a very good short-term reason to pick Point Nemo, which is mainly that you're not going to be harming humans or other animals with this debris falling out of the sky.
You could barely harm fish because there's just not much life there at all.
Yeah, but it's a fish. I mean, delicious.
Stop being so speciesist.
I mean, if it does land on a bluefin, what would you pay for a bluefin that was killed by part of the mirror? I'd pay a lot. I'm just saying. Anyway, but what's really interesting is because you have lack of sort of nutrients in the water, you don't have a lot of sea life. You have very deep, very cold water. What you end up with is a giant preservation. It's a giant piece of Tupperware. Yeah. So when we drop all this stuff off, you sort of have this graveyard that's preserving
for a very, very long time.
All of our spacecraft that re-enter are landing there. And I think it's worth talking about that a little bit, right? Because we build all sorts of spacecraft. Some are designed to re-enter, to come back and be reused. Yeah. So what's the SpaceX, the Falcon, we can reuse those. Yeah. The space shuttle was reusable. But then you have things that are, or like Apollo, early space program in the US, the Apollo command module to return. But we, in the US at least, we have built a bunch of stuff. Some comes back, some doesn't. Like the Saturn V's that we used to launch stuff on, they don't, they're not reusable, right? They're not designed to return. Some of the stuff that has been designed to return and has returned safely, we've put on display. We have shuttles on display all over the country. There's one in Florida, the one at Kennedy Space Center that I saw, Virginia, New York, and of course the one here in LA. The Apollo command modules, we've put those all over. There's one in DC, Kansas, Florida, Ohio, Alabama, Texas. Yeah. But those were designed to re-enter, right? Like they were designed to come back and return astronauts safely to Earth. A lot of the one-offs never come back. What are the early spacecrafts you can think of that we're never going to see again, but are technically still doing science?
Pioneer 10 and 11, the New Horizons, Juno, the Parker Solar Probe.
The Voyagers are out there.
Oh yeah.
In theory, I think one of them is still transmitting, but those were launched in the late 70s. You had the Pioneer 10 and 11 in the early 70s. Those are never coming back. Yeah. Right? New Horizons went out to take a look at Pluto. It's never coming back. James Webb Space Telescope, that's out at Lagrange too. So yeah, sure. The same distance from us to the sun, sort of that midpoint on the other side of Earth, it ain't ever coming back. I don't actually know what its end game is, but I think they just leave it out there. Yeah. It does not return.
Those spacecraft sent in the 70s that are still communicating back with us.
Yeah.
Are they communicating? Because that was really kind of before we had computers and tons of digital communication. Are they communicating in analog to us?
That's a great question. I don't know. I think it's a digital link, but I don't know.
Is there a guy with Morse code on board going da 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 da?
I think they're just constantly responding with lyrics from the Bee Gees albums. They have no idea that the world has moved beyond them. The other one that's not returning that is kind of fun is Elon's early Tesla Roadster, right from that 2018 launch where they put Starman in it. Sure. That thing's never coming back. It's just going off into the nether regions of the universe.
That's really more a piece of litter than a piece of science.
I'm giving him some cred because it was a test of one of the early rockets, so they had to put a payload in it. They didn't have to, but I think it made sense to put a payload in it. Of all the things Mr. Musk has done, this one is very low on the list of what I don't agree with.
You say that until some alien comes back and he's pissed because somebody threw their car away and landed on his planet.
No. They're going to come back and write him a ticket.
That's what they should do.
A litter ticket. It's going to be 35 million credits. That's going to be the ticket. They're just going to come back and just be like, here's your parking ticket. But then you think about stuff that comes back to Earth. So this is stuff that's usually in orbit around the Earth that we're going to bring back in. And you've got like the small stuff. So like the Starlink satellites are great examples. Those burn up on reentry. But the larger ones, they have a decent and a relatively unknown amount of the satellite that will return to Earth, right? So you think of like something like the Hubble that is 43 feet long and 24,000 pounds. Some chunk of that thing is going to land on Earth.
And not entirely made of air.
And it's not made entirely of air. That is right. Or balsa wood. It actually has some strong things.
Balsa wood.
So I think it's important to talk about why things burn up. So what is it that makes this stuff burn up on reentry?
Friction.
Yeah. With what?
With molecules in the atmosphere.
Air.
You're actually Essentially, yeah, you're hitting air.
So you're coming at 17,000 miles an hour, which
seems fast to me, but all right.
Pretty fast. Like there's definitely been a couple people on the 405 have been trying to drive that fast. I get out of their way. But whether you're a meteorite or an asteroid, it doesn't matter. You're coming in at this high rate of speed. You run into the blanket that is the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And as you're pushing that air out of the way, you actually break apart the chemical bonds and you create plasma.
Because you get so hot.
Because it gets so hot, right? There's so much friction. And that plasma will pretty much eat anything that you put in its way because it's so hot.
Unless there's enough density to it that the core can survive.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's like the meteorite example, right? Like, so some part of it lasts.
Yeah.
Or if you're the Apollo command module or the space shuttle, you have a heat shield, which is typically
heat tiles. Yeah.
Yeah. Big ceramic chunks that don't conduct.
Oven mitts. It's made of oven mitts.
That's what they do. When they get into orbit, somebody starts knitting. Like, who's knitting the mitt? You can just knit this giant yarn condom that you put over the spacecraft before it comes back in.
Have you touched one of those tiles that bear the brunt? It's like their foam core. They're super lightweight.
It's somehow lighter than air, and yet it doesn't float.
And somehow it doesn't burn up.
What's more nuts is when they put those things in ovens that are like, I don't know, 2,000 degrees centigrade or something. They take it out with their hands. They just pick it up.
It doesn't retain any heat.
With no gloves. And it's like, wait, what? How does that work? And it's because the thing does not hold any heat. It doesn't transfer any heat.
Yeah.
It's absolutely nuts. So if you don't have this, if you're not designed for reentry, you don't have any of these tiles on it, right? So now the only thing that's really going to make it back to Earth is something that has a lot of mass, and it's those substantial parts that make it. So typically it's going to be like the fuel tank or the rocket boosters, things that are already designed to withstand extreme heat or pressure. This thing's got a lot of insulation, and it turns out composites do pretty well. Like carbon and carbon fibers don't burn when they get sort of to this temperature. So that brings us to the big stuff. And when you get to the big stuff, this is what's interesting, right? The things that land on Earth somewhere. As it turns out, between 1971 and 2018, the global space powers, so this would be like the United States, Russia, Japan, and Europe, they crashed more than 260 space objects at Point Nemo.
Wow.
That's a lot. Like, that's a lot of spacecraft that we've crashed there. And this includes the Soviet era Mir space station.
Yeah. 6
crafts from their Silet program, as well as they've got like 140 resupply vehicles. Like there's a bunch of stuff from Russia that's been crashed there.
Sure.
And I think SpaceX has dropped a rocket off a capsule there as well. We've dropped a lot of stuff, and coincidentally, in 5-6 years' time, the plan is to drop the ISS off at Point Nemo.
Sure,
right, which I want to come back to. But
where else would you drop it? There's no place else to drop it.
Yeah, I mean McCarran Airport in Vegas. You could just bring it in, make it a little attraction. Yeah, I think you could sell
17,000 miles an hour as it came in. That would be it's coming in hot, guys. It's coming in hot.
That's what the Excalibur's for. You slow it down with the Excalibur. That's all that needs to be redone anyway.
By the way, what speed does it come in? By the time it reaches Point Nemo, how fast is it going when it's hitting the ocean?
That's a great question. I don't know. You're going to have some slowdown from friction. Like, you're going to be going slower.
You're going to be going a lot slower because you're going to have a lot more air.
You've got to be going a lot slower because you're going to hear a sonic boom as that thing comes in. So now you're going to hear your sonic boom around 700-ish miles an hour.
Yeah.
So it's slowed down quite a bit because they're not, these things aren't aerodynamic. They're just giant blobs of stuff.
Right.
So it's a flying brick really at that point. What else is kind of fascinating to me about this is, none of this stuff was designed for reentry, right? Especially with the big stuff. You don't know what's going to survive. It's unclear what parts will actually survive reentry or not. This was definitely showcased to me when I was at Kennedy Space Center, and they have the frame from Columbia. When the space shuttle broke up over Texas, a bunch of parts did survive reentry, and they've collected them. They put some on display, and you literally see the window frame is there, like in pretty good condition. I mean, it's burnt up.
Sure.
In pretty good condition. And it was just amazing to see that because you're like
the last thing the
astronauts looked through before they burnt up. Skylab, so that was the first U.S. space station that re-entered in 79, and they deorbited it, tried to slow it down. The plan was to disappear it into the Indian Ocean.
How did they slow it down?
They have, I think they have boosters on there. So they have some boosters that basically fire against the orbital plane.
Got it.
And try to push it, closer into the Earth's orbit, and then the gravity of the Earth does the rest of the job, right? It just pulls it in and spirals it out.
Sure.
But it didn't go quite as planned because there were sightings of falling Skylab debris all over Australia.
Yikes.
And people found all sorts of bits. So I think there was like a 22-foot long airlock shroud was found, which is like a shield that protects the airlock chamber. There was an oxygen tank.
See, if that hits your house, that's like a bad afternoon.
Oh, it's a bad day. That's a real bad day. In all, NASA said that like 38 pieces of debris weighing more than 1,000 pounds each had been found.
Oh my word.
That's a lot. That's right. I'm no mathologist, but that tells me that was at least 38,000 pounds of crap that they found.
Yeah, that's a lot of mass.
Sprinkled all over Australia. So that was, I call that kind of suboptimal. Much later, so in March of 2001, do you remember what came down in March 2001? Planned, not an accident, but something that I mentioned earlier crashed back to Earth in March of 2001. Do you remember?
Russian Soviet Mir space station? I don't remember.
No, you're right. It was Mir. That was after it did something like 1.2 billion miles of travel around the Earth.
Yeah.
Then they did a burn to get it to come out of orbit. And that thing was like 130 tons.
Wow.
So it was big, right? It was massive. And I think it came in from outer space somewhere over Japan and then ultimately crashed somewhere around Point Nemo. But there were some folks I think they were off in Fiji, in the island of Fiji. There were some Russian cosmonauts there to watch it come back in, which has to be one hell of a spectacle, right?
Sure.
So that got dropped off at Point Nemo.
Yeah.
And then, as I alluded to earlier, you've got the ISS coming back to Earth in 2031. For perspective, the Mir weighed 134 tons.
And the ISS?
Didn't get itself on the Wegovy in time. It's like 400 tons, right? So it's about 3 times the size of Mir.
It's a lot bigger.
Right now, NASA's looking at options to help control where it comes in. They're actually looking at building a space tug, which I think they estimate is going to be like $1 billion to try to figure out where to put in. But what's interesting to me about this is that the debris path of the ISS will be huge.
Yeah.
And it should be unlike anything we've ever seen before.
Oh, because it's going to all break apart.
Yeah, they think it could be kilometers wide and up to something like 6,000 kilometers long.
Wow.
So it's going to be an absolute event in 2031 when you see this thing come back in. The good news is we'll know when it's happening. You're going to have plenty of notice.
Sightings, sure.
But it should be an absolute event. So much like last year when I trekked a bunch of friends out to go see the total eclipse, I might try to do the same thing for this because I think this could be an absolute amazing thing to see.
Where will you go?
Well, it depends on clarity and where it's going to land.
Yeah.
If it's going into Point Nemo, which is where I would suspect, I'll try to find the closest landmass to there that we can go. So I don't know if that's going to be Fiji or some other South Pacific island, but that doesn't sound like a terrible trip to go hang out there and then
No, sure, that could be nice.
stare up at the sky. But the point is, we've dropped off a lot of stuff, 260 some things there. We're dropping off more things. What I thought was so interesting about this and why I wanted to talk about this today is this whole place, this area around Point Nemo is basically a gold mine for future archaeologists.
Especially if they're interested in space.
Well, they're going to be interested in space and deep sea exploration because it's a 2-piece puzzle in order to get there. It's kind of like Pompeii. Pompeii, you had like regular everyday life happening.
Yeah.
And then the top of Vesuvius blows off and encases everybody in ash.
Instantly.
We don't find it until years later or thousands of years later. And then you get this perfectly preserved version of everyday life.
A giant 3D snapshot.
You have something similar, I think, at Point Nemo.
Yeah.
Well, of just all of the stuff from our space race. And, you can see the progression of gear. Granted, it's over a much, much smaller period of time, right? Like, let's call it decades, maybe a century worth of stuff that will have dropped off there. But some future species, right? Or some, future version of us humans that goes and looks out there is going to see some interesting stuff that we had dropped off. And, potentially even seeing like a roll off of, wow, there's a lot less rockets after some time period because we went to a reusable platform or whatever, the developments are. But I think that's super interesting. It reminds me of like the archaeologists that were able to figure out coastal hunter-gatherers based on stuff that was left in the shells, right? Like the shells that were left behind, they could tell what they were eating because you'd see these like in their caves or where they lived. The technological material changes, like all of that stuff we're preserving for the future and not just sitting on a S3 bucket on AWS. Like we're leaving it in the deep, dark ocean off around Point Nemo.
Well, there's not a ton of life to help erode it.
There's very little. I mean, I think they suspect there's almost none out there because if there's nothing to eat, what are you going to live on?
Yeah. Cold water and chemiosynthesis. Is that a thing?
I mean, I think this is a bit of a digression, but some of this deep sea exploration, they found vents, like vents from the mantle that have enough nutrition and heat that animals can live around that.
That population has to be tiny.
Oh yeah, super tiny. Yeah. Also pretty isolated.
Yeah.
I always find it mildly concerning. I'm generally pro-animal. I'm certainly anti any sort of animal abuse. When they go and they pull up one of these creatures from the deep sea and basically when it hits the atmosphere, because it's so much less pressure, they just explode. And I'm like, that little guy that fish didn't need that. He was just hanging out down deep, trying to find something to eat. And all of a sudden his
eyes are bulging out of his head.
He's going on the Tower of Terror ride to the surface. That sounds terrible.
Tower of Terror ride with a terrible ending.
But not only do you have, no animals out there, because because you've got sort of natural lack of oxygen that deep in the ocean, that's typically what speeds along the decomposition process for these materials. And these materials are also all like titanium, right? Like everything here is like alloys that are designed to withstand space.
Sure.
So they're going to do pretty well in what's left. And I suspect those things will be well preserved. Even shipwrecks from a couple hundred years ago that we find that are made out of wood, when they sink into the deep waters, they're pretty well preserved.
Yeah.
It's when you pull them up that they start to degrade because you've got the oxygen on the surface.
Yeah, or when there's bacteria or other little critters that break them
totally.
apart.
So I just thought this was absolutely fascinating that we are dumping all of this stuff off in the middle of the ocean,
right?
And sort of preserving it for future generations or even species. I don't know who's going to find it.
When our overlords, the sloths, finally kick into gear and decide to take over, they will.
You want to be afraid of anybody? Be afraid of the sloth.
They will push aside the ocean there to see. Show me more about this space thing you did.
Imagine if those guys, and I'm speaking specifically here about the sloths. Imagine if like they discovered espresso. Like what if somebody one day just accidentally gave a sloth an espresso?
A wired sloth.
And all of a sudden they are just moving, at 100x the frame rate they are now. Like we'd all be screwed.
If they get off the eucalyptus that leaves them perpetually stoned.
That's the koalas. Yeah. The koalas too. Yeah, the furry ones. But imagine a sloth moving not at regular speed, at like cheetah speeds. Like we'd be doomed. Sure. Like that would be the new master species.
Chattering at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Okay. Now I see our jobs are at risk as soon as they get that means we're done. Yeah, that would be scary.
All right, we are done. We have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen anything good this last week, sir?
I think so. I mean, I would say so. We'll see if you agree.
Yeah.
And especially since we are with this Point Nemo episode already ruffling the mouse's feathers.
Yes.
I specifically did not want to think earlier this week. I was on a flight for an hour and a half and I pulled out my iPad and I said, what do I have downloaded that I can watch?
It requires no thought.
No brain thought. I didn't want to read. I just wanted to like open my eyes and stare at a thing. And I had Star Wars Andor season 2. And I was like, ooh, I heard this is good. I had forgotten all of season 1, which I hadn't even finished. Mm-hmm. So I started watching that at the beginning and I really like it. It's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'm not like the biggest Star Wars nerd, but I'm a Star Wars nerd.
The space opera continues.
The space opera continues. That is right. This is the part of the Star Wars franchise that was a prequel to the 2016 film Rogue One, which in itself is a prequel to the original 1977 Star Wars film. Mm-hmm. So you are on the prequel of the prequel. It follows thief turned rebel spy Cassian Andor during the 5 formative years leading up to the events of the 2 films, exploring how he becomes radicalized against the Galactic Empire and how the wider Rebel Alliance is ultimately formed.
Do you know how you used to look when I would talk to you about baseball?
Oh, yeah, you're falling asleep? Yeah.
Look at my face. That's what you're seeing here.
Yeah, totally. No, the difference is I'm right. That's the only difference, but that's okay. That's fine. You'll get there. Hey, if you're a bit of a Star Wars nerd like me, I think you'll enjoy it. Star Wars Andor on Disney Plus now, and soon to add Pitch Clock for Jeff.
Fantastic.
How about you? Have you seen anything this week?
Couldn't have been more disingenuous.
Man, I hope you come in with Star Wars. Please come in with Star Wars. Please, please, please.
Since we spent this episode discussing Nemo, which literally means nobody, I felt compelled to recommend the spaghetti western, My Name is Nobody.
Oh, wow.
Terrence Hill plays Nobody, a young, easygoing gunman who worships and competes with a famed gunfighter named Beauregard, played by Henry Fonda, who's great.
Awesome.
Nobody insists that Beauregard must face down a gang of 150 gold-thieving outlaws known as the Wild Bunch before he can retire. And that is pretty much the entire movie. Nobody trying to convince Beauregard to take on the Wild Bunch over and over and over again. I'm not going to spoil the ending, which is packed with twists. The film is delightful and funny and charming and a classic of the genre. My Name is Nobody on Tubi and Plex now.
I love that they're basically like, look, Beauregard, sorry, union rules. You want to retire, you got to go take these 150 guys down. You're not going to get your pension. Like, you're not going to be able to retire until you do this. I'm sorry, this is how it works. I have not seen that. I'm generally not a fan of spaghetti westerns, but this one sounds really good. I may actually try to go watch this. This sounds cool.
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense. Truly terrible podcast from our awful company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Skittle.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, and Antenna-Pod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, My Favorite Overcast, wherever you may get your podcast from.
Nonsense is brought to you by the Ice Water Council. Nothing quenches thirst like a nice tall glass of iced water. Also, be sure and try our environmentally friendly tap ice water. All the goodness of ice water locally brewed. Ice water, delicious.
That's because Point Nemo, right? Like, is that why the ice water guys showed up again?
Because it's water.
The Point Nemo, the water thing. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
We really got to get the whale consortium in here. We'll be every Tuesday and Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us. I wish you only the best. I'm going to go wrap my brisket, my short rib brisket.
And that's not even a euphemism.
No, God, I wish it was. I'm going to go wrap up meat. You think of me as a way more fun person than I actually am.